Hey there. Yesterday, we were introduced to Balaam and his talking donkey and how the angel had blocked him. And we know that the king wants to use Balaam to put a curse on the Hebrew people so that he can defeat them or that they can die off or whatever the case may be. So chapters 23 and 24 of Numbers finishes this story. So let's just go ahead and jump into uh, what takes place. Balaam said to Balak, build 7 altars here and then bring 7 bulls and 7 rams. After Balak had done this, they sacrificed a bull and a ram on each altar. And then Balaam said, wait here beside your offerings, and I'll go somewhere to be alone. Maybe the Lord will appear to me. If he does, I will tell you everything he says. And he left. When God appeared to him, Balaam said, I have built 7 altars and have sacrificed a bull and a ram on each one. The Lord gave Balaam a message and then sent him back to Balak. Tell Balak. When Balaam returned, he found Balak and his officials standing beside the offerings. And Balaam said, King Balak of Moab brought me from the hills of Syria to curse Israel and announce its doom. But I can't go against God. He did not curse or condemn Israel. From the mountain peaks, I look down and see Israel and the obedient people of God. They are living alone in peace, and though they are many, they don't bother the other nations. I hope to obey God for as long as I live, and to die in such peace. Balak said, what are you doing? I asked you to come and place a curse on my enemies, but you have blessed them instead. And Balaam answered, I can only say what the Lord tells me. Balak said to Balaam, let's go somewhere else. Maybe if you see a smaller part of the Israelites, you'll be able to curse them for me. So he took Balaam to the field on top of Mount Pisgah, where lookouts were stationed. And then he built 7 altars there and sacrificed a bull and ram on each one. And wait here beside your offerings, Balaam said, the Lord will appear to me over there. The Lord did appear to Balaam and gave him another message. And then he told him to go and tell Balak. Balaam went back and saw him and his officials standing beside the offerings. Balak asked, what did the Lord say? And Balaam answered, pay close attention to my words. God is no mere human. He doesn't tell lies or change his mind. God always keeps his promises. My command from God was to bless these people, and there's nothing I can do to change what he has done. Israel's king is the Lord God. He lives there with them and intends them no harm. With the strength of a wild ox, God led Israel out of Egypt. No magic charms can work against them. Just look at what God has done for his people. They are like angry lions ready to attack, and they won't rest until their victim is gobbled down. Balak shouted, if you're not going to curse Israel, then at least don't bless them. I've already told you, Balaam answered. I will say only what the Lord tells me. Balak said to Balaam, come on, let's try another place. Maybe God will let you curse Israel from there. And so he took Balaam to Mount Peor, overlooking the desert north of the Dead Sea. Balaam said, build 7 altars here and bring me 7 bulls and 7 rams. After Balak had done what Balaam asked, he sacrificed a bull and a ram on each altar. Balaam was sure that the Lord would tell him to bless Israel again, so he did not use any magic to find out what the Lord wanted him to do, as he had the first 2 times. Instead, he looked out toward the desert and saw the tribes of Israel camped below. Just then, God's Spirit took control of him. And Balaam said, I am the son of Beor, and my words are true. So listen to my message. It comes from the Lord, the God all-powerful. I bowed down to him and saw a vision of Israel. People of Israel, your camp is lovely. It's like a grove of palm trees or a garden beside a river. You are like tall aloe trees that the Lord has planted, or like cedars growing near the water. You and your descendants will prosper like an orchard beside a stream. Your king will rule with power and be a greater king than Agag, the Amalekite. With the strength of a wild ox, God led you out of Egypt. You will defeat your enemies, shooting them with arrows and crushing their bones. Like the lion, you lie down, resting after an attack. Who would dare disturb you? Anyone who blesses you will be blessed. Anyone who curses you will be cursed. When Balak heard this, he was so furious that he pounded his fist against his hand and said, I called you here to place a curse on my enemies, and you've blessed them 3 times. Leave now and go home. I told you I would pay you well, But since the Lord didn't let you do what I asked, you won't be paid." Balaam answered, "I told your messengers that even if you offered me a palace full of silver and gold, I would still obey the Lord. And I explained that I would only say what he told me. So I'm going back home, but I'm leaving you with a warning about what the Israelites will someday do to your nation." Balaam said, "I am the son of Beor, and my words are true, so listen to my message. My knowledge comes from God Most High, the Lord All-Powerful. I bowed down to him and saw a vision of Israel. What I saw in my vision hasn't happened yet, but someday a king of Israel will appear like a star. He will wipe out you Moabites and destroy those tribes who live in the desert. Israel will conquer Edom and capture the land of that enemy nation. The king of Israel will rule and destroy the survivors of every town there. And I saw this vision about the Amalekites. Their nation is now great, but it will someday disappear forever. And this is what I saw about the Kenites. They think they're safe, living among the rocks, but they will be wiped out when Assyria conquers them. No one can survive if God plans destruction. Ships will come from Cyprus, bringing people who will invade the lands of Assyria and Eber. But finally, Cyprus itself will be ruined." After Balaam finished, he started home, and Balak also left. And so we see a couple of things taking place. One thing I wanted you to notice in chapter 23 is that all of these nations, all of these peoples have kings, like King Balak. Doesn't necessarily mean they're huge groups of people, but each group of people had their own king. Israelites did not. God is supposed to be their king, which is mentioned in chapter 23. And what we're going to find later on is that the people start to grumble because they want to be like every other country. They want to have their own king. And eventually God will let them have a king, but it doesn't make them any better. In fact, it makes them worse, as we'll find out at some point. The second thing I just wanted to know is that Balak tried to tempt Balaam multiple times with money, with prestige, for him to say what he wanted him to say. And there are times when you want something really, really bad, and you'll pray about it and you'll ask God about it, and you don't feel like you're getting the right answer. But God knows what's best. And so if he says no, it's no. And if he says yes, it's yes. And God doesn't change his mind. And there are things in the Bible that we just have to take and understand that it's what's best for us. And so we have to do it just like Balaam did. Hope you have a great day.